Speaker Gingrich, thank you for your service and for your time. My name is Luke Scanlon. I'm a mid-career MPA here at the Kennedy School. And so I'm one of the conservative students here in the body. And we have a great time finding a lot of conversation with all of our colleagues. As I recently told someone, we've learned how to get along despite our differences and understand better why that we disagree. One of the things that many of us are concerned about is corporate donations to campaigns and a fear that campaigns, particularly politics, can be bought and no longer really truly accessible to everybody. So as a president, what are you going to do about making sure that when we have donations, that does not override the political process? And something else along those lines is, how much time are people actually spending, the people that we elect, how much time are they spending understanding politics versus out raising money for the next campaign?
Those are both great questions. They're very important questions, and I want to deal with them separately because they're so important. I think the entire post-Watergate micro-bureaucratization of politics has been a disaster. When you set a $2,500 cap on what people can give, what you actually do is guarantee that incumbents spend all their time raising money. And their goal is to create a mountain so high that no challenger can match it, because the challenger has to go out and try to raise $2,500 units, and they can't do it. Now, some of you say, well, there's too much money spent in politics. I would just say to you, this is a very expensive country. Look at the amount of money we spend for cat food. I mean, look at the amount of money we spend for deodorant. I mean, this is a very expensive country. You're trying to deal with a government that is a $4 trillion government. You're going to have a lot of money spent in some form. I think we'd be vastly better off to have a very simple law that says anyone can give any amount of after-tax income as long as it is reported every night on the internet, and you would overnight reduce the amount of time people spend raising money. And you'd have people be able to say, look, you don't want to donate to me, that's fine. I'm going to go over here. I mean, my experience was I never had to change a position in order to raise money. I had to find the people who agreed with my position. And if I found people who agreed with my position, I could raise a fair amount of money. The second half of what you said, though, I think is really a disaster at two different levels. What's happened is we've grown a consulting industry so that instead of having the old-time big city machine bosses, you now have these consultants. And these consultants earn a living, and sometimes an extraordinarily good living, out of buying advertising and getting a percent of what they buy. And so the consultants are very heavily in favor of advertising, and they're very heavily in favor of very simple-minded candidates whose primary job is to raise money. So the ideal consultant model is you go out and raise money. In order to hire me, I will then write talking points for you to get through the news program, and I will then take the money you hired to write really vicious 30-second ads and push-pull polls and other things, so you'll win the election, and then you'll arrive in Washington knowing nothing. But when you get to Washington, you could hire a chief of staff who will then write talking points for you while you go to the, this is, when you go back and you study people like Lincoln or Jefferson or Washington, or even up as late as FDR, and in a unique way, Ronald Reagan, who was totally an anomaly and outside the normal system. Lincoln personally spends 3 months researching his speech at Cooper Union. He personally writes it. He understands what his, he knows what he's saying. I mean, people talk about these debates recently. The truth is, I prepare for debates 7 days a week, 52 weeks a year. And then sometimes the debate shows up. But I don't go rushing around and say to my team, why don't you tell me the 7 things I should memorize for this evening? I just think that's appalling. Because the person you elect has to go and actually make real decisions. And so I think this whole current model has got to be fundamentally rethought.